What if the feeling that you don't quite belong here, that you are somehow out of place on this planet, wasn't a psychological problem? What if it was literal? That is the premise at the heart of one of the fastest growing alternative spiritual movements of the digital age. It's called the Starseed belief system. And according to sociologists who study it, it functions, for the people who hold it, exactly the way a traditional religion does. Tonight on Words with Wentz, we are exploring it, not to debunk it, not to endorse it, because as someone who has always been drawn to questions that don't have easy answers, I find this one genuinely fascinating. The night sky is the oldest canvas human beings have ever had. Tonight we look at what some people see when they look up, and why it matters. In the constellation Taurus, visible on winter nights from almost anywhere on Earth, sits one of the most recognized star clusters in human history, the Pleiades. Ancient cultures from Greece to Japan to the Aboriginal peoples of Australia have woven stories around these 7 stars for thousands of years. In Starseed mythology, those stories take a very specific form. According to academic documentation of the belief system, the Pleiades are understood as the home of the Pleiadians, a spiritually evolved humanoid race described as heart-centered cosmic guardians. Scholars document that this narrative was heavily popularized in the mid-20th century by Swiss contactee Billy Meier, who claimed ongoing communication with a Pleiadian named Semjase. In the mythology, Pleiadians function as what believers describe as elder siblings to humanity, projecting frequencies of love and environmental stewardship to help Earth through a coming spiritual evolution. Whether you take that literally or metaphorically, there is something worth sitting with in the idea that humanity's most ancient stargazing tradition keeps reaching toward the same cluster of lights. If the Pleiades represent hope and guardianship in Starseed mythology, the Orion constellation carries a very different weight. Orion is one of the most recognizable constellations in the Northern Hemisphere. Its 3-star belt visible from virtually every point on Earth. In traditional mythology, it is a hunter. In Starseed lore, it is something closer to a cosmic battlefield. The mythology describes ancient galactic conflicts, what practitioners call the Orion Wars, fought between authoritarian empires and those seeking freedom, warring factions, ancient grievances, a history that echoes the oldest stories humans have ever told about themselves. But the mythology doesn't end in conflict. The 3 stars of Orion's belt, Alnitak, Alnilam, and Mintaka, are described in the lore as hosting spiritual councils that eventually brokered peace, establishing what believers call a cosmic template for resolving polarization. A battlefield that becomes a place of council. Again, whether taken literally or as metaphor, there is something recognizably human in that arc. The Starseed cosmology doesn't stop at the Pleiades and Orion. It maps a full galactic civilization across the visible sky. The Lyran system, home to the star Vega, is described as the cradle of humanoid life, where human DNA was first engineered before a catastrophic event forced the population to scatter, seeding the Pleiades, Sirius, and eventually Earth. Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, is linked in the mythology to ancient Egypt, described as home to master builders and engineers who bridged human capability and cosmic technology. The connections believers draw between Sirius and Egyptian cosmology are not invented from nothing. Sirius had genuine astronomical significance in ancient Egyptian culture, rising at the time of the Nile's annual flood. Arcturus, the 4th brightest star visible from Earth, is positioned in Starseed lore as the apex of spiritual evolution in the galaxy, non-physical beings of pure light who govern a spiritual gateway through which souls pass. And the Andromeda Galaxy, our nearest galactic neighbor, visible to the naked eye on a clear night, is described as home to cosmic diplomats and historians dedicated to preserving individual sovereignty and galactic records. A complete civilization, written in the stars most humans walked under for their entire lives without reading. So how do sociologists understand this? Scholar Adam Passamai developed the concept of a hyper-real religion, a consumer-driven, highly individualized spiritual movement created from popular culture, science fiction, and simulated histories that functions just like a traditional religion for its practitioners. Researcher Christopher Connor, writing in Frontiers in Sociology in 2023, documents how these belief systems provide the same psychological and community functions that mainstream religions provide, meaning identity, belonging, a framework for understanding suffering. Researchers Barros and Sandlin added another layer in 2024, the concept of conspirituality, the merging of New Age alternative spirituality focused on personal transformation with alternative narratives about hidden truths and secret histories. What the research finds is this: in an era marked by institutional distrust, social isolation, and climate anxiety, identifying as a starseed provides something traditional institutions are increasingly struggling to offer: an immediate, empowering framework for understanding why you feel out of place. The feeling of earthly alienation is reframed, not as a burden, but as cosmic homesickness, proof of an exotic origin, evidence of a divine mission. That is a remarkably effective reframe. I'm not going to tell you tonight what to believe about the stars. What I can tell you is that this phenomenon, millions of people finding identity, community, and purpose in a detailed mythology about their cosmic origins, is not a fringe curiosity. It is a documented, studied, growing movement that sociologists take seriously precisely because of what it reveals about the people who hold it. From prehistoric alignments of pyramids to the stars, to late-night digital forums where people compare their Pleiadian soul contracts, humanity has always cast its deepest questions upward, always looked at the same sky and tried to read something back. The Starseed mythology takes that ancient impulse and gives it the language of the 21st century: extraterrestrial species instead of angels, galactic federations instead of heavenly councils, star of origin instead of homeland. Whether that is profound or not, whether any of it is literally true, is a question I leave entirely with you. What I find worth honoring is the impulse itself, the looking up, the refusal to believe that we are alone or that our existence is without meaning. That is not fringe, that is profoundly, recognizably human. This is Words with Wentz. Stay curious.